Yeah.
When I say life is tomorrow's not guaranteed, I've seen way too many people think they had tomorrow and next week and next month and next year. You don't. And AI can tell you, yeah, well, we'll fix that for you. We'll fix. No, it won't. It won't. You're gonna die. And sometimes that's what it takes to finally realize that maybe I should look in the mirror before that happens. Because yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Uh, Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, I talk about that sometimes is like when I was going through my divorce. Tomorrow's actually going to be the 2-year anniversary of it,
okay.
which is just a good time to reflect on things and how far I've come since then. But I remember my grandma passing away, and that was 2 years ago in February. And at the time, right, I was separated from my ex, and we were going through all the legal stuff, and it was just so sad. I was in a really sad place because I was married for 5 years, and then we dated for a few years before that, so I had this whole life that I had ahead of me, and then abruptly I mean, over time, right, the decisions that I made affected that, but
Sure.
when that decision came up that, "Hey, this is happening," it was really tough, and I'm still processing a lot of it, I still probably always will, it's just such
Probably
a
process for the rest of your life.
yeah, and I
We have this idea that grief
yeah,
gets you're over it. You're not.
yeah, and, but one thing that changed me, it's crazy, and you're talking about death, was I was really floundering for a little bit when after we separated, like, with porn, just
Yeah.
felt like I was just doing a nosedive, and it was actually Valentine's Day 2 years ago when my grandma went into the hospital, was on Valentine's Day, and I remember at the time, I, uh, I think my at the time, I think I was actually, like, watching over the house where my ex was living. I think she went on a trip, and I was just taking care of the animals and stuff, and I got a call that she was going to the hospital, and, we called her Saint Anne because no one had any negative memories about my grandma. She My aunt said the worst thing my grandma ever said to her was to go play outside in a stern voice, which is actually not bad advice. But, why I brought that up was I was struggling, but that I remember that day I actually committed, with my mentor, who's actually a pastor. He has a podcast called, Finding Traction, and pastors on
Okay.
porn. Vern Tomke, he's a great guy. I remember that day was a day that I put some accountability software on my phone, my laptop. I recommitted, and that was before I got this phone call that my grandma was in the hospital.
Okay.
So then I drove from Colorado Springs to, like, the Denver area, and something that changed in me was all the people that were in the room. My mom's side of the family, my parents have been married for over 35 years. My mom's side is a lot of them live pretty close in Colorado. My grandparents were in Wheat Ridge, that's where my mom grew up, and you're from Colorado, so you kinda know the area, but, they were at the same house for, like, 65 years, and my grandpa owned a printing press for a while, and then a lot of my uncles and aunts worked in printing, and they still do,
Yeah.
and they would stop by my grandma's and grandpa's house, like, every day to get a beer, to talk. That's kind of the vibe that was in my grandparents' house, so really tight-knit. They always
Yeah.
had an open door, very safe place you could go, no judgment, and just the greatest stories and connection, great food, all that stuff. And when I was in this hospital room, all of the family was there, and I have a big family, so you couldn't even fit everyone in the same hospital room.
Yeah.
And I think that changed something in my heart because I really thought about how do I want to be remembered? How do I, like you were saying, we our days are not promised to us, so how are we gonna live our lives? And it really changed me deep inside, and then she passed away 2 weeks later. I was a part of We would take shifts. I wasn't as involved as my mom was because my mom works
Okay.
in nursing, so she was really involved, but there was, like, 2 nights where I went there and I actually, was helping out with my grandma and making
Yeah.
sure that she was cleaned up and all that stuff with my cousins, and that really made me really introspect and think about life on a different level when I was really thinking about, okay, like, when I'm older, when I'm her age,
Yeah.
am I gonna have this family that's taking care of me and that loves me so much? Or if I keep going down this route with porn in my life, in this isolation, this disassociation, this destruction. What is that going to look like when I'm that age?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
is it, you know?
No, well, and what's funny about this is, and this is where growing up around death shaped me very unique. Because I think sometimes we say, well, God knows all, he sees all. We kind of like, yeah, 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 sure, but he's God, whatever. And we can dismiss that and we're like, but he's got grace and mercy and forgiveness. And so we'll make excuses for why we won't change these things about ourselves that we hate. We know they're terrible. We hide them. We shroud them. We do all this stuff. And maybe we can get to a point where we're like, well, God will overlook it. He'll forgive me for it. Um, but one of the things that growing up in a funeral home was, I mean, I've been at more funerals and visitations
Mm,
than probably anybody will in multiple lifetimes. Um, and what I can tell you is every secret you think you are hiding will come out when
mm.
you're dead.
Wow.
Whatever
Yeah.
you think you have hidden, whatever you think nobody knows about you, whatever you think, I pulled it over, it comes flying out. And the quality of the relationships you built, the things you did when nobody was looking, the things you thought you're no longer there to kind of hold back the tides, and they all come crashing in. And the worst part about that is I've seen it devastate so many families and so many
Mm,
people when the truth about who dad was or who mom
yeah.
was comes flying out, and now you're not there to explain the context or to help understand or to say I'm sorry or anything. You're gone. And so when all this stuff comes crashing out about who you really were, I've seen it destroy families. I've seen it. You had to call the police I mean, it's crazy what can happen with this. And then people's real feelings about you start coming out. You can surround yourself by people who tell you you're wonderful and you're smart and you're great and everything about you is the best. And then when you're not there, all the stories of I hated that person, they're a jerk, nobody's at the funeral, or the people who are just there to spit on your casket because they're like, finally you're gone. And it's like,
Mm,
is that the legacy you want to leave? Because you're leaving a legacy
regardless.
regardless. You don't get to say, well, I just won't. Okay, sounds good. Let me know how that goes for you. You're leaving a legacy, and it's going to be the legacy of who you really were, whether you want it to be or not. And I think for me, that has always shaped me. And I like I said, I've got plenty of major mistakes in my life. I mean, I
Sure.
won't tell the story, but like I got dragged out of Bible college by federal agents my freshman year. So like I've got I've got things in my past. But one thing that growing up in a funeral home taught me was, man, like I just don't ever want, because I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow or next week. I really want to make sure I'm doing everything I can to make sure, like, I'm trying to do and be the best version of myself. And not because I'm afraid God's going to zap me with lightning or I'm afraid how people are going to judge me, but because that's just a harsh reality. And yeah, I've seen too much, and you can't unsee it once you've seen it.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, because you could be in incognito mode. You could be deleting your history. But as we know, that will come to light as well, either in your life or after your life. And yeah,
Somebody's going to
it
have to go
just,
through your phone. Somebody's going to have to go through your devices. Somebody's going to have to go through your email as they're doing all this stuff. All those secret passwords you thought you had, all those things you thought you were hiding, all this stuff that, the relationships, the Snapchat threads that you thought nobody would ever find. Somebody's going to find them. And yeah, and it's terrifying to think that that could happen when you're not even there to try and some people might be like, well, good, then I'm dead. It doesn't affect me. It's like, really? You want to destroy the people around you that way? You care that little about the people around you that you would let their lives be devastated and have them second guess you for the rest
yeah,
of their lives? No, you don't want that. You don't want that.
yeah. That's, I think, and maybe I know we're we're at 2 hours already,
I
which is
know we're just going.
I'm like, man, this could go on for yeah, I probably gotta jump off in a bit.
Yeah,
Actually
no
heading to the
worries.
mountains for a little 4-day weekend. But I think that really is a good place to end, is like thinking about your legacy, thinking about, because I think we covered so much, and again, really appreciate your time. This has been fantastic talking with you. I knew it'd be great, just getting to know you and stuff. I knew we'd have a fun time. So I really appreciate you being on. But I think
Yeah,
that's like a important place to leave it, right? When I think we're talking about technology and we're talking about all these advancements and how concerning it is. I think ultimately, right, it's all about you and what you're doing deep down inside in yourself. Like that's kind of where the key lies. Like the whole world could change, but it's still like up to you to make choices, right? And to make
yeah. You have far more
choices that,
control than you realize.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's an important, hopefully, a takeaway for people listening to this is if you're looking for solutions to if you're struggling with porn, it lies deep within you, right? And who do you want to be?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And and who do you want others to know you as? God and other people. And you can put on a mask and a veneer and try and pretend to be something you're not, but you will always be found out. And that's that's scary, and sometimes that drives people to just try and hide deeper. But I think what I've discovered consistently, time and time again, is the best thing you can do, no matter how deep you think you are, no matter how far you think you've fallen, you can always fall farther. And we have this horrible
Mm,
habit of going, ah, no, 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 no. But like, as counterintuitive as it is, surrender is the most freeing, rewarding thing you can do, because then at that point, you've literally changed the trajectory of everything. It's a complete turning point. And I think that's where not only is scripture and salvation and all the things we see in the Bible, yes, it's religious, yes, it's supernatural, yes, it's all these things, but it is immensely, immensely practical and logical. It goes against our like best thinking, but you really start digging into it when you really start thinking deeply, and that's what I love about the deep work I do. The deeper you go, the more you go, oh. Oh, there's a design behind all this. Like he's just telling us how it works. He's not being this angry, judgmental God throwing lightning bolts at us. Like he's the architect, the blueprint of reality, and he loves us so much. He's going, here's how it works.
mm.
And we go, stupid instructions. Like I'm gonna do it. And he's like, okay, so
Yeah, and I think it fits perfectly into like the title that I was working up was reclaiming your code.
yeah,
And we're talking about ethics. It's like reclaim your code of ethics. Reclaim your code of who you are.
your
Uh,
identity.
Understand what your design is, right? And that I think we're constantly coding ourselves with the decisions that we make every day and what
Yep.
choices we make, right? Like we're building out the code. Like God knows what the code it looks like and how it goes. But
He wrote it.
sometimes, yeah, he wrote the code. Yeah. Which that's a whole that'd be an interesting topic to discuss at some point, is like the
Yeah,
simulation theory kind of thing. I think that's really interesting. But I sometimes trying to like land the plane, I guess, with the
yeah,
podcast, with your talk. But I remember talking to someone about this was, I think what helped me with porn addiction on my end was understanding like where in the code, like looking into myself and looking at the mirror, like where in the code was that that I needed to go in and look at and really
yeah.
reclaim. Like
Where was the
there was
glitch?
something there was something there that was glitching to where, hey, I got these programmed habits that I feel like I can't break free of. I'm just
Yep.
it's almost like I'm possessed, like I'm just going to these things.
You have malware.
And
I mean, honestly, the technology
right,
analogy play. You've been infected with a virus. You've been
right.
corrupted by a Trojan horse, and you've got to get a rootkit and like pull it out.
Yeah, and that only happens right when we can sit down and look in the mirror, look at the code, look at our code, and be honest with ourselves.
Right.
Because in I think the beautiful power about God and faith is how much more powerful it is than this power that we perceive that porn has over us, or these
Yeah.
temptations, these fleeting desires. We, I think, sometimes can believe that this cannot be overcome. This is too powerful. But when you
Yeah.
compare it to the power of God and to faith, it's not even comparable,
No. No.
you know?
It's not. And I think that's where it's going back to reclaiming what God truly made you to be. And that's where, going back to the very beginning of your story growing up and kind of the Catholic side of things, where it's like, I think a lot of people see becoming a Christian as fire insurance, gets you out of hell. And it's like, God has so much more to offer you than a ticket out of whatever you think hell is. Like, that's just such an understatement of what it is. But I'm familiar with being told that that's what it is. And it's just, going back to your point, he wants to root out every virus and piece of malware in your code so that you can be exactly who he designed you to be. And you don't even have to look at Christians. I mean, everybody out now right now is trying to find purpose and meaning, and what is it to be me, to make my imprint on the world. Well, do you want to make the imprint he designed, the one that truly will actually satisfy, or do you want to be the imprint that you're trying to hold together with rubber bands and paper clips?
Mhm. Well said. All right, sir. Well, I'm sure we could keep talking. I
Yeah,
think
I'm sure we could. I
I
can't
feel like I
believe
said
people
that
have
like
stuck
20
around
minutes
for
ago.
this long.
I feel like I said that like 20 minutes ago. I'm so terrible at that. I've done that
No,
before where I'm like, "Hey, we're going to land the plane," and then it's like an hour later.
I
Uh
know.
but yeah, I think just to close out, like, where can people find you? I know we talked about at the beginning. I know some people hopped on a
Sure.
little bit later, but where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm super active on Substack now. I mean, I've kind of created a landing point, christopherlin.co, which is kind of like, you're supposed to have a brand. So I did, when I went off on my own. And so that's where it was. Because before it was like, well, you can read my stuff on Substack, or you can follow me on YouTube, or I'm very active on LinkedIn. And it was very confusing for people. So that's just where it was like, well, you know what? You can just find more about me on christopherlin.co. And then that'll point you out to all the different stuff I do. And, yeah, I love engaging with people, like things like this. I love this kind of stuff. Just talking and getting to know other image bearers and the stories he's created in them, and how we can encourage and build each other up. Because we need that right now. We need
Oh,
that in the
big
world
time.
right now.
Yeah, we need to talk. We need to be honest, and we need to encourage each other. Encourage each
Yes.
other, and I think the collaboration that's been available on Substack's been really cool. Just to meet other. I think I was thinking about it. I was like, I've talked to more fellow Christians and priests and pastors than I ever have. I think like the ever since I've been divorced, really, going through that, it's like brought me so much closer to God and to other people. Because I think I had to look down at very root of things, right? When
Yep.
you're torn
Yep.
down and you're broken, you gotta find who you are in that and
Yeah.
resurrect yourself. So, and Christopher also has the Future-Focused podcast. I've been listening to that. It's fantastic because I mean, you're
Thank
just
you.
talking about, like you said, every week things are just changing, AI space technology, and how does that affect us in the
And it's
workplace, human
scary.
experience? Yeah,
It's scary. And so my goal is, again, kind of like we said here, to build people up and go, I get it's scary, but here's how you can think about it.
yeah, we've got the power. We've got the power within us. So,
Cool.
Christopher, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for hopping on today. We'll post this later on YouTube, as well as get the full video out for everybody. But
Yeah.
yeah, feel free to
Thanks for having me.
support
Thanks
this.
for having me.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
enjoyed getting to know you through Substack and all this other stuff. Super fun. Like you said, I can't believe here we are sitting talking 2 hours later, and it's like we can keep going. But this has truly been a blast.
Right on, man. Well, hey, have a great rest of your day, and everyone listening, thank you so much. Keep fighting the good fight. Break free, stay free, be free. Talk to y'all later. Bye.